And is man any the less destroying himself for all this boasted brain of his? Have you walked up and down upon the earth lately? I have. And I have examined man's wonderful inventions, and I tell you that in the arts of life, man invents nothing. But in the arts of death, he outdoes nature herself, and produces by chemistry and machinery all the slaughter of plague, pestilence, and famine. The peasant I tempt today eats and drinks what was eaten and drunk by the peasants of 10,000 years ago. The house he lives in is not altered as much in 1,000 centuries as the fashion of a lady's bonnet in a score of weeks. But when he goes out to slay, he carries a marvel of mechanism that lets loose at the touch of his finger all the hidden molecular energies, and leaves the javelin, the arrow, the blowpipe of his fathers far behind. In the arts of peace, man is a bungler. I've seen his cotton factories and the like, with machinery that a greedy dog could have invented if he had wanted money instead of food. I know his clumsy typewriters and bungling locomotives and tedious bicycles. They're toys compared to the Maxim gun, the submarine torpedo boat. There is nothing in man's industrial machinery but his greed and sloth. His heart is in his weapons. This marvelous force of life of which you boast is a force of death. Man measures his strength by his destructiveness. What is his religion? An excuse for hating me. What is his law? An excuse for hanging you. What is his morality? Gentility, an excuse for consuming without producing. What is his art? An excuse for gloating over pictures of slaughter. What are his politics? Either the worship of a despot, because a despot can kill, or parliamentary cockfighting. I spent an evening lately in a certain celebrated legislature and heard the pot lecturing the kettle for its blackness, and ministers answering questions. And when I left, I chalked up on the door the old nursery saying, "Ask no questions and you will be told no lies." I bought a 6-penny family magazine and found it full of pictures of young men shooting and stabbing one another. I saw a man die. He was a London bricklayer's laborer with 7 children. He left 17 pounds club money, and his wife spent it all on his funeral and went into the workhouse with the children next day. She would not have spent 7p on her children's schooling. The law had to force her to let them be taught gratuitously. But on death, she spent all she had. Their imagination glows, their energies rise up at the idea of death, these people. They love it. And the more horrible it is, the more they enjoy it. Hell is a place far above their comprehension. They derive their notion of it from 2 of the greatest fools who ever lived, an Italian and an Englishman. The Italian described it as a place full of mud, frost, filth, fire, venomous serpents, all torture. This ass, when he was not lying about me, was maundering about some woman whom he met once in the street. The Englishman described me as being expelled from heaven by cannons and gunpowder. And to this day, every Briton believes that the whole of his silly story is in the Bible. What else he says, I do not know, for it is all in a long poem which neither I nor anyone else has ever succeeded in wading through. It is the same in everything. The highest form of literature is the tragedy, a play in which everybody is murdered in the end. In the old chronicles, you read of earthquakes and pestilences, and are told that these show the power and majesty of God and the littleness of man. Nowadays, the chronicles describe battles. In a battle, 2 bodies of men shoot at one another with bullets and explosive shells until the one body runs away when the others chase the fugitives on horseback and cut them to pieces as they fly. And this, the chronicle concludes, shows the greatness and majesties of empires and the littleness of the vanquished. Over such battles, the people run about the streets yelling with delight and egg their governments on to spend hundreds of millions of money in the slaughter, whilst the strongest ministers dare not spend an extra penny in the pound against the poverty and pestilence through which they themselves daily walk. Oh, I could give you 1,000 instances, but they all come to the same thing. The power that governs the earth is not the power of life, but of death. And the inner need that has nerved life to the effort of organizing itself into the human being is not the need for a higher life, but for a more efficient engine of destruction. The plague, the famine, the earthquake, the tempest were too spasmodic in their action. The tiger and crocodile were too easily satiated and not cruel enough. Something more constantly, more ruthlessly, more ingeniously destructive was needed. And that something was man, the inventor of the rack, the stake, the gallows, and the electrocutor, of the sword and gun, above all, of justice, duty, patriotism, and all the other isms, by which even those who are clever enough to be humanely disposed are persuaded to become the most destructive of all the destroyers.